Zach here from Gravel by California, as I'm here to three-peat the Lifetime Sea Otter Classic. Now, maybe I'm figuring things out because this time I was named an ambassador, which I found out the hard way doesn't come with diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity.
It's just been revoked.
At the same time, I just want to see as much as I can, but really take it easy and really have experiences out here. And I think it's bled so much that the family wants to come too, so we'll see a lot of everything, but mostly bikes. Let's roll. Our focus this year at Sea Otter was the revamped gravel race, as we got a great preview a couple months earlier with race director Jeff Frost. And another perk was getting to come early, as I arrived with Andrew from Gravel Pack Riverside Wednesday to use my diplomat status for the VIP dinner at the aquarium. But since we arrived into Monterey on the early side, a little shakeout ride was in order, as on this row you'll have a yes I can attitude, unlike these beach loafers on prime real estate, though I could really get used to this. But as much as we want to gaze out to the ocean, I didn't want to miss the aquarium experience, knowing I'd already be filming a lot this weekend already. But one big question was answered during dinner, that there would be no seafood involved. Our first day at the festival looked to be angelic, although you could tell our first moments were anything but, as someone from a bordering state had set up in our camping spot, meaning we had some complications getting our rented trailer parked, and finally entering Sea Otter was going just as well. But at least our ambassador wrangler Ali Tetrick was there to lift our spirits.
Welcome to Sea Otter, day one. And there's so many thousands of people here, and I keep running into you, Zach.
I know, and I didn't offer you a ride yesterday and you're still talking to me.
I know, that's true.
We finally had time to festival. First checking out Chinelli's King's Ideco offerings that's capable enough to carry 47s and a win in the 300-miler gravel worlds, with a reminder I need to upgrade my steel bike. And every year, Brompton continues to impress, even showing off the ease of air travel right in the face of the Bike Flights booth. I focused most of the day on components before Vic got here, always interested in what Ortlieb has to offer, with a quick lock for the fork pack looked really handy, and nearby Fidlock has a number of unique securements as well. Sea Otter is also a place to learn about other rides, which Cycle California magazine has been covering for about 30 years, running into our friends behind some of the events at Fresno Cycling Club, as well as a contingent from the Tour de Big Bear that was also one of our favorite events last year. The most memorable thing I saw at the festival was from Kenny Belay and his team that's inconsistently placed in the Z-axis, as I've seen magicians saw people in half before, but I was far more scared here in real time, pushing the limits of volunteerism. We headed over to the VIP tent, ending our first day at the festival nourishing up, having more than enough to fuel our gravel course recon, getting our first stroll through Fort Ord on this trip, covering the pinch points on this 24-mile loop, although focusing this coverage in vertical form as part of our involvement with Sea Otter, with the course far more friendlier than years past. But would it hold racing at full throttle? The buzz level was at an all-time high for Fuego XL, the first event in the Lifetime series, with an optical illusion from the gun, with the men not slowing on this grade, highlighted up close by the woman, importantly jockeying for position before hitting dirt, ended up being vital as the first 4 through held their position for the entire race. And while they still had 65 miles of action ahead, I headed back down like fellow ambassador Jenny to festival it up, finally getting to meet Alex from Ostroy in person, and with my closet filling up with their resort shirts, you could argue for cycling clothing and fashion boutique, as I next headed over to California produced or not, looking to grab another UV trail shirt, this time in hoodie form, as it was time for Vic and I to unite on festival grounds, joining Gravelstoke's Hielo ride as one of the many group options at Sea Otter, ready to register 20 miles in the backcountry of Fort Ord, with only a little crossovering the gravel route, having an opposite theme, adding a lot of single track, which this faction had a blast with. But some of these sections showed up on the family ride I'd be doing Sunday, requiring a different level of skill, as the route had some crisscrossing with the Fuego, meaning Dave had to chase down those getting caught in the action, making me more well-rested than Vic. But we were about to experience a number of great single track options that shows the amazing variety of Fort Ord after we held on to this first section. Dave got us back in time for plenty more festival. As I knew with Vic, we'd be checking in on plenty of bikes, knowing that sometimes you could find the smaller bike manufacturers paired with other brands, with Vic zeroing in on Steinfitten's carbon and tie combo that starts around 15K, that I'm guessing the upcoming gravel version may not be too much cheaper, as this design made me hearken the last season of Mad Men, viewing the fork as if Mr. Sulu was needed to navigate. As Kenny Belay continued to hop over every age group, we stopped into wolf-tooth components, reminding me I need to stop relying on others carrying a chain braking tool, and Jack Lou's customizable button-downs seemed like a future look for GBC. 2 years ago, Redshift Sports caused a lot of rubbernecking with their strong lead for innovation, starting from their shock top suspension system, as my early testing with the stem has brought thumbs up so far, and next I'll be adding in their seat post as well. But their new kitchen sink handlebars have been flying off the shelves, except when firmly attached like these. The day winded down with friends, running into gravel luminaries Hema and Joe, and checking in with the California Mountain Biking Coalition, with a legislative win, with the state declaring June California Mountain Biking Month, finishing off with tacos from Jesse and Katie of Visalia Cyclery to hear about their bikepacking plans with Ride California, as the parking lot feels like a festival of its own before grabbing my family from the airport. It was a typical foggy morning before the gravel race, with plenty of groups representing, like Barangay NorCal, and the Fast Crew from Slow Gravel, with Joe still lifting spirits after 197 continuous hours of Sea Otter coverage, as the waves lined up as far as the eye could see, hoping that some of my route scouting would pay off. The gravel race consisted of 2 laps, with a few key points within. Getting a good start like the Fuego XL was key to avoid bottlenecking the first half mile coming out of the track. Right after the 3-mile mark, you have to question your approach on how to handle a 20% plus grade effort. After a fast descent and a short punchy climb, you whipped around east on the first loop where you can power through this gradual ascent. Hitting the western loop, your focus are the 3 consecutive climbs that smack you harder on each iteration. Backtracking over the punchy climb, the lap concludes with almost a 3-mile ascent, but it's the last quarter where the grade grips at you. Combining the 2 laps, the race covers 46.8 miles and over 5,300 feet of vert that could hurt. I expected a fast cyclocross-like start off the line, but the atmosphere was fairly cordial from what I could see through the fog, though you could notice part of the group wanting to separate, and I think I did a good job not going into the red while not getting clogged while leaving the track, leading to the next 2 miles where you could really unload, which would be harder to acknowledge if it was your first time out. But I needed to take off my glasses because of the fog, that maybe visibility contributed to this crash on the first hard turn, and it would take a few miles to clean off this camera. But coming up to this mini rock cobbler type pitch, I might have been able to climb it, but I know I'd pay for it later. The next couple of miles had some gravity payback, followed by a little sticky hill where I wanted to spin instead of grind, as even Andrew was starting to feel it, and I made sure to keep a metered effort on the first loop. My bigger issue was discovering I lost my sunglasses, though I was able to spot co-ambassador Martin on this slight grade, and glad the course was well marked. While I was progressing, there was something about this rider that was bugging me. Not realizing it was my fellow Cal Bear Chris, who had been pranking people all April with this new look. But I was soon brought back to racing, seeing the earlier competitors on the West Loop, all respecting space for 2-way traffic, as it would be about 5 miles to return back, where you'll be seeing so much of Greg that he even followed me back into my rock cobbler video. As IRL, we started the first 3 climbs with some gravitational tension to start, followed by a minute's worth pumping through this gooey tarmac, and ending with this 8% effort that felt like more than a third of a mile with a lack of trees to scale. Closing off this loop felt dramatic, and I was skittish starting the next 3 miles of pavement, having crashed here on Thursday. As on the connecting climb, I was passed by other Greg, not pushing to play catch-up, starting the final ascent on this lap, focusing on a lower gear than normal, as I felt like conserving energy in spin mode, and glad there was no heavy pitch the drummers were perched on like last year, completing the first lap a little ahead of my sub 3-hour goal, not looking forward to my second go around on that climb, as the focus on the first few miles of lap 2 was to find my glasses, while not slowing down too much to lose position, knowing I had at least 2 Gregs in front of me. But I felt like the clock was my own race, once again dismounting, not knowing I'd pass Greg 1.0 taking a break at the top, and this was my last shot using my third camera, as less filming meant faster times, aided also now by a clean one in front, able to show how I overshot the turn onto dirt like the first lap, still turning over the crank pretty well after, as I kept running into people from the Santa Cruz area like Caleb, and then Julian pretty soon after.
Hey, don't say to me unless you're from Watsonville. What's up, buddy? How's it going? Doing fun so far.
There was good news hitting the 3 climbs, that my times were only slightly slower than the first lap, and feeling more comfortable attacking them off the downhill turns, but still perilously close to missing my time goal, even though no one passed me from my age group this lap, with some spirits lifted on the return, passing Swanee on the lollipop. But I was losing time on the downhill turns into more downhills still from the crash, which doesn't just cost you time, but momentum, as the descending group from behind worked to catch on, sticking to my strategy not to go into the red for the penultimate climb. But going into the final one, I saw other Greg ahead, making me push in front of the selection in case they bottlenecked for their own race. But I continued my pursuit, even though there was more than 2 miles to the finish, and hopefully keeping this pace would be enough, putting my head down, doing my own thing. But the more prudent move would have been to ride within the forming group and not continuing to push as hard when they caught up, because when they decided to pull through, I had already used up more energy than I should, giving them a good launching pad that created a gap pretty quickly. And while after that lunge I did seem to hold pace, but I could only do so much to close these distances, as 13th place in a deep field was a pretty good showing, and I was glad this year's edition wrapped up before lunchtime, though Vic, not feeling well, left for home with Andrew, leaving me to festival with my family, getting the Stoke on early. Even with a lot of kids around, my biggest question this year was if my family of a certain cycling fervor would enjoy Sea Otter too, with their kids' own stuff with activities, and Nehemiah Brown excited to find a bike for his daughter just getting into it. Would my family unit be just as interested throughout the festival? The answer is yes. I had no idea the line of products 3DO was involved with, but I was thrilled to learn their polymer was playful enough to fill in for our babysitter. And yes, my wife also wanted to visit Ostroy up close. That's becoming an N+1 in my wardrobe. My family even entertained my visit to Panaracer, despite having the largest line of gravel tires, letting me check out their latest offering from their X1 line. And after possibly overfueling at the Goo booth, we checked out Pre-Velo's line of kids bikes, along with old friend Jim Shanman of Walkin' Rollers, kind enough to give a water bottle in case a parent forgot. Capsuled storage options with some opacity were an eye catcher, especially when you notice candies filled within. It's good to know she's my daughter by how much she loves Lyft, while I was over checking out Garmin's solar-powered options, as WTB has been one of my favorite tires, but with more clearance on my Lauf, I'm starting to look at larger options. But there was one more place to pop into, with Brandon from Bull's Bike setting up my wife for the family ride, as it was fun to wrap up in explosive style in Carmel by the Sea, along with Anna from Serrata, being able to do some belt unbuckling, hoping to keep momentum high into our final day. I was so thrilled the fog burned away this early, as I was a tad worried about the family ride having 1,500 feet of climbing in just 10 miles. With the enthusiasm flowing, getting to ride as a family, and it's clear starting on a racetrack leaves with a good first impression. But this big climb off the back didn't track as well as the gravel race, and I'm pretty proud she almost made it all the way up by herself, having no problem with the next punch thrown. But it's safe to say that the single track ahead looked tenuous. That was even part of the Fuego XL, confirmed by seeing the trouble others were having climbing the next ridge. But my wife had a real positive experience on the e-bike, getting the gist of why I like riding dirt, though Junior's hands weren't strong enough to handle gravel braking on these grades. So we repurposed the Bull's bike as a tow truck, picking up where we left off on the racetrack, where holding off on the brakes wasn't as much of an issue, and while we barely touched much of the family ride, more importantly, we ended on a high note, even asking if we could do a second lap. Thanking Brandon, we may have another off-road convert and a happy family looking to return next year. Now finally being able to step away from Sea Otter, I can already see what a great experience this has been. The festival itself, I'm learning better how to do it every year and definitely got into the finer details, which I'm really starting to enjoy. The gravel race really hit all the right notes. I love shorter courses because you're just going to push harder in that time. But most importantly, having my family here and enjoying it, that was a wild card that definitely played off, and it looks like they'll be back in part of these videos too. If you just want to support us, go ahead and hit the subscribe button or support us on Patreon so we can bring you more from the State of Dirt.